So I go into a Teams meeting. I'm at work and I'm having a meeting with my legal guy. So I've got a contract that I need to send out to one of my suppliers and we just need to put signatories on it and send it out. So I'm just making sure that's happened and moving it along. So I've put this meeting in and we have this meeting and he appears on camera and the first thing he says to me is cupola. That's the word you're looking for. And I'm thinking, what's he on about? So my brain is trying to catch up on what he says and he suddenly goes, in your video, your Royal Oak video, that was the word you couldn't think of. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I just have no idea who's watching these videos, but I'm glad you're here. It's table talk time. Let's get stuck in. Yes, hello, a big warm welcome to Model Kit Stuff. My name is Jason. This video is called Table Talk because I sit at a table and talk. There's no great genius in it, to be honest. So we do this every week. We talk about what's going on with the channel and somehow or other we always end up finding stuff to talk about. Don't know how, but we do. And I'm sure this week will be no different. So a big warm welcome to you all, especially if you're a new subscriber. We are so close, tantalizingly close to 15,000 subscribers. I think we're at 14,700 and something when I last looked. So we're very, very close. And if you would like more people to find this channel because you enjoy it, then one of the best ways you can do that is to hit the like button on my videos when you watch them. You know, that way the algorithm picks it up, says, oh, a lot of people are liking this video, and they share it more with people who've got that interest. And, you know, that's how many of you find this, is it gets popped up, the channel gets popped up as a suggestion in your feed at the end of a video or when you're searching for something. So that's just how it works. So hit the like button is what I'm saying. Big warm welcome to you all, members, subscribers, new subscribers, you're all welcome. I've got subscribers now who have been on this journey with me for over 5 years, and I think they would agree the channel has evolved a lot in that time, and we are still evolving. We are still doing stuff to improve the channel, work on the channel, and we'll be talking a bit about that during the course of the video today. Right, as ever, let's catch up on various different bits of news before we get stuck in to what happened last week. You will recall earlier in the year I was saying that we were going to do some new stuff with the channel and that I was setting some bits and pieces up so that we could get access to more kits and products and things and stuff for review. Well, that's all now in place. That is all sorted. So I'm happy to say that everything that I was hoping we were going to be able to set up, we have been. So for me, the channel is in a rock solid place now as we go into 2026 in earnest. So you'll start to see some of that filtering in as we go. What it means is the kits that I am planning to do first impressions of, that I've already purchased, they're going to become filler. So I'm going to be recording those and getting the videos uploaded and edited and so on and so forth. and they're gonna be the ones that I show on the weeks where I've not got something new to share. So we will be sharing some more new kits which I think you guys will enjoy and get a benefit from, and it will probably speak to more people who are not subscribers of the channel yet. So I think it's a good way forward. Now, I've just been sent today, as I'm talking to you, it's Wednesday lunchtime as I recall this, I've just been sent a ream of emails with latest releases on, so I'm going to work through that, and you know, maybe once a month we're going to pick one of the new releases and go, right, let's check that out. What I'm then going to do, because a lot of these kits will be kits that I don't want to keep, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the packaging, and then members will be given opportunity to take them off me at the price I paid plus postage. So that'll be less than you can buy RRP, basically. So that's going to start happening soon. So if you're a member and you're entitled to be in the social group, then please, please, please keep checking into the social group regularly, because that's where I will share it. Okay, we talked about membership last week and consulting on that. So what I'm doing now is I'm working through some of the stuff in the background, like I said. So I've got some videos to record, and that will back all of that up. I've been testing the some software to see if we can get set up like a club night. So we've tried Zoom, and Zoom had some limitations. There are a number of people who didn't want to use a Microsoft product, Microsoft Teams. I wasn't too keen on it either. I have found something, I've tested it again with Gary, and that seemed to work. So I am going to be doing a little mini test of a club night. If you're a member, keep your eye on your emails, because I'm going to email a small number of you and invite you into a test of the club night. So that'll be you finding the software, which is free to use. It's online, so it doesn't matter what type of computer you've got. And then I will send you an invite by email and you join the meeting. And we'll just have a play and see how it interacts when we've got multiple people on. And I'm hoping that that works nicely, and that all of us in that little test group agree that this is the way forward for a club night. So yeah, we are nearly there. So once I've done that and I've finished recording the videos, we can look at launching the new membership platform. So I've not got a timeline for that, but I have got some annual leave coming up in the middle of March. So my latest is to launch it March time, when I've had, because I've got a couple of days to myself. Paula's going to go back to work, I'm not. So we're going, I'm going to be in a place where I can do any last minute videos and setting up if needs be. So that's sort of my drop dead end of March. I was sort of saying, well, you know, get it all sorted in March, maybe launch it 1st of April, but maybe not. I think soon as it's up and running and I'm happy that I've got everything in place, we might as well just switch it on. Now, if you're an existing member, that means that you will be able to go in and change your membership one way or another, or stay as you are and do nothing. And I'll put a post in the social group to make people aware. I will probably also do a members only video around the launch for all members, so everyone can understand what's going on. Not all members watch the Table Talk video, and not all members have access to the social group. So we will see. Okay, so that's sort of where we are with the channel stuff so far. It's all ticking over quite nicely. I've got my first trial product to have a play with and see what it's like ahead of launch, so that's been really interesting. So yeah, and I think that's probably covering everything that's been going on with the channel since the last time we talked. So I'm happy that it's going in the right direction. Okay, that means that I'm really busy as we're running up and running into Easter. I've got a really busy time. I've got a lot of video recording to do in the background and what have you. So I've not got a lot of capacity for other stuff. So I had a channel approach me about doing a live stream, and I'm saying no to that because I need to prioritize the stuff that I'm doing for the channel. And one of the focuses, as you know, for me this year is just trying to improve, again, just ratchet up the quality of the presentations and stuff. It's a little bit hit and miss. Some things go well, some things don't go so well. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a mo. But it's taking up a lot of my time, and I have to be mindful that this doesn't become something that sucks up all my free time and I have no free time left for my family. So very much what we'll give is the content if needs be. I'm working on improving the quality. That inevitably means taking up more time. So the Royal Oak video that we've just been talking about, for example, you know, there was around about 4 hours of my time in there with recording it, taking photographs, editing it, and what have you. So it takes a lot longer doing with the picture in picture. So you know, improving the quality or the presentation of what we're doing comes at a cost, and what I've got to do is ensure I find a balance where actual making content hasn't become bigger than the hobby that it's all hanging off. So I've got to be mindful of that and keep that in mind. So with that in mind, I've decided I won't be doing anything with any other channels for the time being, because I just have too much on my plate, and with me doing the little bit of extra stuff with the members, that becomes my priority. So yeah, I think that's what I have to do, you know, to keep my sanity and make sure that you guys are my principal focus and not necessarily some of the bits and pieces that I occasionally do with other channels. Anyway, having said all that, I think you'll agree with me, focusing on my stuff is better for you. You're watching my stuff for a reason. Okay, right then, shall we move on to what we got up to last week? So that actually started on Sunday with our review of the Seeker from Gaahleri, which is their new entry-level airbrush. And what was really nice was the number of comments I got on that video about how much they like the predecessor to this. I think one or two people were not aware that that airbrush has been retired and that this is a replacement, and some people were saying, well, I would buy another one of the older versions because I like it so much. Well, what I'd say is, if you like that, you'll love this because it is a step forward. But you absolutely are not going to get the old one unless you buy it second hand. So yeah, this is a really nice brush. I've had a good play with it now. I haven't used it on a project yet, but I intend to. Now, when the Mobius came out, I used that a lot because I was sort of, you need to spend time with an airbrush to get used to it, get used to its little foibles. It's, you know, they've almost got personalities, but you get used to working with them and how they work and what they like and how to set it up. And what I tend to do with my airbrushes is I get them to a setup that I like and I leave them there. So you'll notice that I have on my airbrushes little labels on them which have a number on. So that's the size of needle in them, because I tend to leave it. So when I get something like this that comes with 2 needles, I decide which is the needle I'm usually going to run in this, and then I'll leave that needle in there, and I'll probably put a paint cup on it that suits that needle. So at the moment this has got the number 3 in, but I've got a Mobius set up with a 3, so and I've got a Mobius set up with a 2, because, you know, they just come with the 1 needle. My other GHD, the predecessor of this, I don't want to uncouple it, that's got a 0.5 needle in it, and I've been using that for quite some time and I'm quite happy with it. So I'm probably going to leave the 0.3 in this. And then of course I've got my Aventus airbrush, and that's set up with a 0.2 or a 0.3, 0.5 or a 0.4, I can't remember. So I try and have my airbrush set up the way I like it, because I'm not stripping it down all the time. I'm just doing a quick clean, which is all it requires most of the time. So I'm not changing the tension of the trigger and stuff. So when I've got it where I like it, I tend to leave it like that. Now I know that that's a bit of a luxury. You know, I've got multiple airbrushes, so I've got that luxury to have multiple setups, you know. And for most people, 1 airbrush is all you need. But don't be fooled by an airbrush being entry level. If it works, if it puts paint on and you can do everything you want and it's reliable and it doesn't give you any trouble, then that's it. That's your tool. That's the tool you need. So what I'm trying to say is, don't be tricked into thinking you need to spend multiple hundreds of pounds on an airbrush. You really don't if you're a hobbyist. You really, really don't. And I fell down that trap because there's so many people saying buy the best airbrush you can buy. But I've worked out now that that's absolute nonsense. And people say it because other people say it, and they've heard so many other people say it, it becomes a truth, you know. And we all see this, you know, we all know that the more you say something, the more it becomes a truth, even if it's not. And the truth is, if the tool works for you, the tool works for you. As simple as. And I quite often find myself reaching for the lower end airbrushes because they're robust and just do what I need them to do in that moment. You know, if I'm doing something fancy, if I'm doing a very complex, let's say, Luftwaffe camouflage effect, and you want cloudy, mottled camouflage effects, then yeah, I'm absolutely gonna get my higher end airbrush that's got a load of control and what have you. But if I'm just spraying a colour down and I've got things masked off, then, you know, it doesn't matter. I can use my trigger airbrush if I'm putting a lot of stuff down. If it's smaller parts, I can use one of my more basic airbrushes. So for me, it's good to have those different things, and I find it interesting what I end up reaching for, and I tend to reach for the lower end airbrushes more often than the higher end airbrushes. I don't know whether I see them as being a little bit more faffy, but I am going to put more effort into using my Aventus airbrush, because I want to get to grips with it properly and understand what I find it good at, and I'm going to spend some time with the Seeker so I can feedback to Gaahleri, because they have asked me to feedback on their products. They've asked me to give me feedback on their Aventus and what have you, which I have done. I had a little niggle that I shared with them. So, you know, I'm quite happy to talk about these these things from my point of view, and I go back to, you know, I'm just a hobbyist with a keen interest, nothing more. So yeah, don't think, if you've not done airbrushing before, don't think that, you know, you need to buy an expensive airbrush, because you can often get exactly the same results with a much cheaper airbrush. What I would say is, don't be sucked into buying these things that cost 25 quid or less, and especially if they're like, you know, 30 quid and you get all this other, you get a compressor and a, you know, the build quality of the airbrush, that as in the manufacturing tolerances of the machining of the airbrush, will give you problems, and you don't want needles that wobble because you can't put down accurate. So you do want a precision airbrush, but it doesn't have to cost you the earth. So an entry-level airbrush is often the way to go. Now what I'm going to do with this, for full disclosure, because I don't particularly like the closed body. There's nothing wrong with it, other than it's a bit faffy trying to put the thing back on, because you've got to get the needle lined up with the hole in the back of here. If you've seen the video, I talk about it. So I am going to change the body. Now the old entry-level airbrush has a different size thread, so I can't just swap that. So I will probably buy a Mobius body to replace it at some point. Around about May, I think the Year of the Horse collector's airbrush sets will be coming out. Around about May time, I think, is my understanding. So maybe that I can use one of those bodies and give it a different body. But yeah, otherwise, so far we're playing with it. I've been really quite happy with it. So there you go, that was the Seeker. That was out on Sunday. If you've not seen the video and you've been contemplating airbrushing, then I'd say two things. Go and have a look at that video, because it's a great entry-level airbrush, gives you 2 needles. But also go and have a look at my airbrushing for absolute beginners. It'll take you through everything you need to know, help you set a budget and decide what is the equipment you need to buy and what your budget is for the most important element, which is your compressor. And then all the other stuff, I mean, it's important to have an airline. You've got to connect it to the compressor at the end of the day. But in a way, the airbrush is not the most important component. But of course, that's the bit that's in your hands. That's the bit everyone focuses on. And people want one that looks cool. You don't need one that looks cool. You need one that functions well, is robust, is well made, and is going to last you, and therefore is good value and a precision tool. That's what you really want. And with so many airbrushes out these days aimed at hobbyists, it is a bit of a minefield. And it's been a while since I've bought an airbrush that, or messed around with an airbrush that's not a Gaahleri airbrush. So yeah, and you know, it's interesting, because I was playing with my Infinity CR Plus, which many people consider to be one of the very best airbrushes you can get on the market, and I didn't like how stiff it is to work. So to press the trigger down, you get some real resistance, and it's, you know, it's hard work, and your finger gets fatigued really quite quickly. But you know, I've been so used over the last 2 years with my Gaahleri airbrushes that I've got used to them, and I'm no longer used to an airbrush that's harder to work with. So really interesting how things develop over time and what you get used to, actually. Right then, so that was Sunday. Then on Monday, some of you, if you're a member, midshipman and above, then you will have had access to the General Lee build. So I'm trying to put a General Lee video out every other Monday until that is complete. The build series will complete after the end of the group build, but I intend to have the model finished by the end of the group build, and we'll come back to that when we look at what was happening on the bench. So that's probably a really good time to remind you that the Wheelie Things group build is going to be completing on the end of February. So I will be asking for you to send photographs to me from the 1st of March onwards, and we'll do this showcase somewhere in March. I know there's a lot of entries coming for the Wheelie Things and people have been enjoying it, so I for one am massively looking forward to the showcase. So the build of the General Lee, I mean, I'm nearly done, and I shared some build pictures with the social group, and I said every single step, and I mean every single part and the fitment of it has been an absolute nightmare. It's shocking. I think it's probably the worst kit I have ever built, and that's going some. I mean, I have built or attempted to build even some real shockers over the decades. I've been building kits, but you know, I go back to the late 70s and early 80s, and you know, most kits weren't presenting problems like the flipping General Lee has. I mean, you've got a position where you put the body on to the floor pan, and it sort of, it moves, it dangles, it doesn't have anything to locate against. It's just resting there. It's just bizarre. It's really bizarre. So yeah, it's been fun. But I'm at that point now where I'm feeling the end of the group build, and I need to get it over the line, and every time you take a step forward you have to shuffle back a couple before you can take another step forward. So it's taking so long that I'm ready for it to finish now. I'm ready to be done with it. I thought I'd be done with it a few weeks ago, and I'm not. So really, yes, had my fill. And we'll talk in a little bit more about the whole project in a minute, and then that'll lead me on to something else. But yeah, that was the, I think we concentrated on doing the engine. So you're actually quite far behind the build in terms of what I've done. So by putting a video out every other week on a Monday, you should fairly quickly catch up with me. So the video series, the build series, will continue a little bit after that. Right then. So that then got me to, oh sorry, I said that the airbrush was out on Sunday. It was actually out on Tuesday. So it was General Lee, then the airbrush. Sorry, I've done them in the wrong order. And then Wednesday, today, this morning, went out the AMC Roadrunner. Now that kit is tooled in the early 80s and is not far removed from the General Lee tooled in the 60s. I mean, it's just shocking. And someone said, yeah, well, they aim the kits at people who want to do lots of custom and stuff like that. And, you know, I think that's a fair comment, and, you know, that's maybe what they do. That doesn't justify them, though, making kits that don't fit together, that have got broken bits. I mean, what they've snapped the body off, and there's damage in the body. And, you know, they're an American manufacturer, so you'd sort of expect better from that, but they're really just shoving it in the box and selling it. They really don't care. They're really not interested in, you know, for me, AMT are not really that interested in taking pride in the product, to be honest. The problem is they make the most interesting subject matter. Lots of people have said to me now, over the course of me talking about cars the last few months, oh, you should build a Tamiya kit, they're much better and they won't give you the challenges. Well, yeah, but the subject matter's boring, you know. It's modern cars and F1 cars and stuff that I'm just not interested in. They're not cars with any style or any interesting look, or even a pickup truck. So for me, it's AMT or Revell at a push for cars, and I have to suck up the fact that the kits are going to be junk and I'm going to have to put a lot of effort in. But there is a big fun element around car building that you get more so with that than any other type of kit, and that is the ability to customize. So yeah, I could build a model of the Bismarck and spray it pink and put turrets on from a British World War One ship and what have you, and mess around with it and reshape it and put a spoiler on the stern. I could do all of that. It's, you know, it's physically possible, but everyone will look at you and think, you know, it's time we went for a bit of counselling, or maybe a special room that's got soft walls. So with the car modelling, you can express yourself a little bit, you customise it, and everyone will go, oh cool, let's have a look. You can't really do that with military subjects particularly. There's probably one or two you could maybe wangle if they're vans or something like that. But you know what I'm saying, you've got more ability to create something personal and unique to you through building cars than any other genre. Aeroplanes, yeah, you could mess around with it, you know, and do stuff like that. Probably it's the next easiest genre after aircraft, but yeah, after cars. But I think cars and trucks, you've got a much wider ability to mess around with what you want, customize it and make it personal, and everyone look at it and go, oh cool, and not, why have you put pink spots on that warship? Do you know what I mean? So there are definitely models that need to be built to look accurate, and other models where you can have lots of artistic license, and that's the bit that I think I'm going to really enjoy from car modelling when I get stuck into it. But looking at my build program for this year, that's more a thing for 2027. Okay, so the Roadrunner, a beautiful subject, a very average kit, and I think when I come to build it, the little average ometer is going to drop more towards the below average, but you know, I'm smiling, it'll be fun. And then that gets you to Friday night, last night as you watch this, which is Lady Eleanor Part 8. Moving along with the Lady Eleanor. As always with wooden model ships, you feel like you're sort of in a little quagmire when you're doing the hull. You seem to sit on the hull for ages because you do the first planking, then you do the second planking, then you do mouldings and trim, then you're doing painting, then you're doing detail painting, gun ports and what have you. Then you're possibly putting gun port lids on and bits and pieces like that. You then might have the ladders to put on, and you've got the rudder to put on, and then you've got, maybe if you've got a stern gallery and gallery quarters, you've got decoration to go on, and then you may have copper tiling to go on. So you feel like you're doing the hull forever, and then suddenly you get to deck fittings and you're moving on, and that's brilliant, and that goes into masts, and that's got a bit more craftsmanship to it because you're not just fitting parts together, you've got to do some shaping and fitting and stuff, and that feels like proper woodworking. And then you get to the rigging, and depending on what you're modelling, you get to this other sort of quagmire bit. So the videos feel like they're on the hull for a little bit of time, but we are moving it on. We do painting, at least start the painting I think in the next video. I'm not sure because I've edited several now, so it may be that I'm actually getting mixed up with the next one that I've also already edited, because I am still 3 weeks ahead of myself, which is really great. So yeah, Lady Eleanor 8, and that gets you up to where we are today. So let's talk about what happened on the bench, shall we? So on the bench this weekend we did nothing on the Wessex whatsoever. Yeah, so there was no work done on the Wessex, so I haven't moved that forward because I was concentrating on the General Lee. I did do a little bit on the Grecian, so we'd done, if you remember, we'd completed the fairing, or at least I thought I had, and then we came to check to do the fitting of the first templates. So these go along the upper works, so it's the middle bit that you then sandwich with inner and outer bulwarks at the top of the ship. Now that's done first before you do the planking. In fact, you put the deck in as well, which you don't have to do it that way, but because it's for an absolute beginner's build, I'm going to follow that basic process. So, you know, if this is the third ship you've ever made, then you probably want to still be following the instruction process, just for a bit of peace of mind, I think. So I come to fit that, and I decided that I hadn't faired it enough at the prow. So there's a little square bit with a hole in where the bowsprit's going to go, and I hadn't sanded anything off there. I thought we'll leave that. Well, I was going to have to sand some material away from that so that these would fit. And I'm looking, I can see a gap and going, you know, this isn't fitting right. So I mustn't have faired enough, but do I want to be taking material off that? Well, if you flick through the instructions, you have to go to page, I think it's 100 or 110, and you see a close-up picture, and it's been all, you see it all sanded away with everything installed on it, and you can see how much material was taken away, and it's almost taken away to that hole, which you can't quite see earlier on in the instructions. So I'd confirmed with myself I was doing the right thing, and we've done some more fairing. So I've come up with a way of working that's very slightly different to the instructions to help you fit that first template perfectly, because the model's been designed to help the modeler as much as possible. There's a little line there so you can get it level with the deck. It's just how far forward it goes, and what you don't want to do is have it too far forward so that when you come and put the actual outer keel pieces on, that they're not flush. You really want those flush. That's where you want to be. So I'm going to clamp those on in position, not glue them, because you don't want them on for first planking, and then put the piece in that locates it at the front, and then there is a overhang at the back, but you know it's correct because you've got it all aligned. So that's what I was working through at the weekend. So there's nothing really to show you because it's all clamping work rather than actual you know, and test fitting rather than actual doing anything. But I can show you what we've done with the General Lee. Now bear in mind the fit of this is dreadful, and you know, this is not a model that I would ever put in a show. I mean, I don't, but you know what I'm saying. However, at arm's length from a distance it looks okay. Get a bit closer and it's not so good. I've had issues with every single aspect of this kit that was supplied by AMT. The painting's gone okay, so we've done painting and clear coating, and that's largely gone to plan, and I've been happy. A lot of sanding. We explained the basic processes in the video, but yeah, but the bodywork doesn't fit. It sits on the wheels, so you can only make it fit on one side. So on one side we can make it look great, and on the other side you can see the floor pan, because it'll only fit one side or the other. And at first I thought, oh, is it my roll bar that I've put in? But actually no, it doesn't touch the inside of the roof at all, and it fits nicely on one side, and the roll bar's absolutely level. So it's actually sitting on the wheels, and also the internal bit, the bathtub with all the internals in, I think it's touching that, but even that doesn't fit. I can see gaps through the windscreen. It's horrendous. But if you look at it at a distance, it looks okay. What's worse is I'm painting the figures and I've come to do a test fit. So this is the display case for it with the figures, and the figures don't fit. So, I mean, these are 3D printed from Etsy. They weren't the most expensive, but it just shows you. So if you can see there, his hands won't touch the bonnet because they're actually forward of his bum, which is touching the bonnet. So the posture, the position of the figure is wrong. And the other guy at the back, you'll see that he's leaning over because his arm isn't high enough to rest on the roof, even when it is correctly positioned with the body. So the two figures are rubbish as well. So I would have to cut the arms off and adjust them, and I've no longer got time to do that. So what I'm committing myself to is at some point in the future finding a kit of a 1969 Dodge Charger that's not AMT, and build it as the General Lee again. I can get 1:25 scale stickers of the original General Lee, which also has the little flags on the back. But I'm at the point now where I just want to be done with it and move on. So we've got to finish painting the figures. I've got a scratch build CB aerial, and I've got one or two other minor little bits to do, and we are done. So I'm hoping that we will finish the General Lee during the course of this week. We will see. And then it'll be full steam ahead on the Wessex. So let's just talk about the build plan, because I know some of you don't watch this every week. I might have missed it. And also another thought process I've got for one of the planned builds for this year. So as you know, the plan is to finish the General Lee, then finish the Wessex, then get on to the Scharnhorst. Now the Scharnhorst still remains a big build with a lot to do, and there's no two way about it. It will take me most of the remainder of the year to finish it, if I manage to finish it this year. Now we made some other commitments as well. So we've talked about doing Jim Hopper's vehicle from Stranger Things. So I definitely want to do that in year. So whilst we'll be just focusing on the Scharnhorst, when we come to do the group build, which is 1st of March, for TV and film, then I think in reality the Scharnhorst has to be every other week to give me a chance of doing Hopper's vehicle. Now, I have been asked several times now. I was asked, two people actually asked me at Telford, and one or two other people have mentioned it in passing. Someone's emailed me about it, about doing a plastic modelling for absolute beginners video series. And I considered for a short while whether we could possibly do that with Ravel's Hopper's vehicle, because I was thinking about it. You've got to pick the right kits. You know, I spent some time deliberating which kits we were going to do in the wooden modelling for absolute beginners. You've got to pick the right kits, you know, and everyone's got a slightly different view. So some people will say, oh, build a Tamiya. You often say that when people say, oh, I'm new to the hobby, what brands would you recommend? A lot of people will say Tamiya because it's like doing a jigsaw puzzle. It just slots together nice and easy. You're not going to have any fit issues or nothing major. And I don't 100% agree with that, because a lot of people, or you'd hope that a lot of people new into the hobby, are also fairly young. So you've got to consider budget as well. at least for the first couple of kits. So if I was to do a plastic modelling for absolute beginners, I'd do what I've done with wood. I'd do 2 completely novice builds and then 2 amateur builds and build on the skills. I think that format works well. But you've got to assume that these are youngsters that are going to be starting out on this. You know, maybe they've come to the hobby because they've got an interest in space or something like that. So you're not going to do a Tamiya kit because they're either, the newer ones are quite expensive, and so they're probably outpriced for absolute beginners, and the cheaper Tamiya ones are a fair bit older, and although they're still good kits and will not present any issues in fit, and you can still prove the process on it, I think you want to do something that's a little bit more modern, probably. And some of the older Tamiya kits do have 1 or 2 issues, although you could argue that those issues are things that modelers need to be able to understand what to deal with. So there's a little bit of thought in it. My thought is probably what we could do is something along the lines of Airfix. So you get a newer tool Airfix kit that's fairly readily available. That's the other thing. You're not having to try and find it on eBay or something like that if you wanted to build along. So you've got to do something that's currently released, and that's not necessarily a starter kit. I know Airfix think, the starter kits need to be small scale. I don't necessarily agree with that, and you can buy a 1/48 scale aircraft that's maybe a 10-year-old tooling or 8-year-old tooling, and that would probably fit the bill and be affordable. So I'm thinking about it, and like I say, I did consider Jim Hopper's vehicle, but I think the skill level is too high. So for those of you that have been asking, what I'm going to say is, yes, I think I am going to do it, but I'm not going to do it this year. That's probably 2027 coming along. Probably once we've finished the Scharnhorst and we can do 4 nice builds in quick succession, and it'd probably be 4 different things. So we could do an aircraft because they're fairly simple and low part count in the main. Then we could do I don't know, some form of basic vehicle of some type. So we could, I don't know, a Land Rover or something like that. Then we could perhaps go to something more complex like a tank, and cover different genres, and then maybe end with a 1350 kit, a small one, a frigate or something like that, and go through the different model genres at the same time, or maybe end on one of the space rockets or something that Airfix have put out at the moment. So I wouldn't want to do an Airfix kit for a ship because they're all ancient tooling, so there's no point in doing that. I've already done the lifeboat, so there's no point revisiting the lifeboat. It wasn't the best kit anyway, it had some fit issues. So yeah, so we'd perhaps shop around. So I've got that in mind, and I'm going to have a look at my stash and see what I've got and see what I might need to get. And so I'm working on it for 2027. So plastic modelling for absolute beginners, and keeping that in mind for 2027. And we'll see what comes along. So if you have been asking, that's what we're going to do with that. Now coming back to 2026, once we get on the Scharnhorst, it's going to be every other week while I build Hopper's van, in terms of me building and working on it every other week. And then when Hopper's police vehicle's done, we'll be working on her every week. I think there'll come a point where I go, you know what, I can't face it. And when that happens, we will then jump on to something else. And that is likely to be my Thunderchild build, because it will be a little bit different. I am mindful though that that's just nothing but ships going, so I may change my mind and just do some very small aircraft kits and you know, just as sort of a change of pace and do that. So you might see one or two unplanned small builds come out during the course of the year, depending what's going on. I've even got some figures for painting, so we could do some figure painting. I got picked up a couple of things at Telford which are small, which might be fun to do. So yeah, there's little things that might come along unplanned during the course of the year, but my main focus will be the Scharnhorst, and then I want to do this Thunderchild build for the group builds, but I might not get chance, and I've decided Scharnhorst is the priority because we're over 2 years since we started it. So yeah, so that's where 2026 is looking. So it's all hinging on how quickly I can work through the Scharnhorst at the end of the day, and I've got some holiday days to take, which we can do towards the end of the year to really put some effort in getting her over the line if needs be. But actually the next, I mean, I've got to reassess and remind myself where I'm up to with her, but one of the things I want to do is get her out of a build cradle. So I mean, she's covered in plastic cling film at the moment to keep all the dust and muck off her, but my next step is let's put her on a proper base and keep building from there. So that's going to be interesting because the plan currently is multimedia, so we will see. But yeah, I'm already starting to think about, we're nearly at the point of jumping back on the Scharnhorst, so looking forward to that. So that's sort of my year ahead in terms of builds. Yeah, we'll just suck it and see, but it could be that the Thunderchild build is going to become floaty things for 2027 because I've made Scharnhorst the priority. So we will see, but I can't just focus on the Scharnhorst all year. It'll drive me mad, so I do need to do some other bits and pieces as well. Now then, on the wooden front, I think you absolutely know the plan. As soon as we can get hold of the Surprise, we're going to be building that. That's no surprise to anyone. If you are interested in seeing how that comes together before I've had chance to review the kit and get cracking with it, there is on the Model Ship World forum, there is Jim's build of it that he's putting together, and you'll see some of the photographs that ultimately will end up in the instruction manual, I suspect, being used to give you sort of a progress report. Copper tiling at the moment, so copper tiling right up there with rat lines for things that take a lot of time to do. I actually find copper tiling quite therapeutic, whereas rat lines, yeah, therapeutic is not the word I would use. But yeah, but these come with copper tiles that are already done, so you just got to glue them into place, and that's quite good fun actually. You can put some music on and just whittle away. You know, it's as good a therapy as any you can get. So yeah, so that's sort of closing aspects of the hull, I suspect. It will move on quite a bit once we get to deck fittings, and if I was building it, I'd be doing some of the copper tiles and having a break and doing some of the cannons and other bits and putting them to one side and then doing some more copper in and break it up a bit, and I suspect that's probably what Jim's doing, but we will see. But yeah, quite interesting to see how that's coming together. There's been more of the parts being shared and so on, but you've already seen many of the parts. Some of them might get reworked, of course, from when you first saw them, but I did do a video on that if you're interested in the surprise. But some people have been asking me what happens after the Absolute Beginners course finishes, and we've done those 4 kits. So as you know, we're working on Grecian now, then we've got Ada, and then we've completed all 4 seasons. So my answer is I will build the next level up. Now the reason for that is my Desert Island kit. We're going to talk about that in a minute, so we're going to revisit it. So I'll explain a little bit more in a minute, but I've built more hulls than I've built masts, and therefore done rigging. So when I was doing some stuff for a partwork company, I built a fair number of hulls, but never got that far into the builds that I did the rigging. So I have less rigging practice than hull practice, and I wanted to get back into rigging, but also I want to expand my knowledge of rigging. So you know, I bought a tool to help me make ropes and stuff like that. We talked about that last year. So I want to make some of my own rigging before I get to the Indefatigable, because I want to be able to sort of really go to town with the rigging, spend the time on it. So I want to practice that on some smaller kits. So I've got 1 or 2 options for that. So realistically, I've got 5 options when I finish the Ada, and I'm happy that Absolute Beginners is done. So I've got 2 kits in my stash that I've had for quite some time. One is the Mary Rose Caldercraft kit, and Mary Rose is a ship. I love going to visit the Mary Rose Museum and seeing the Mary Rose, and every time I go I learn something new. But the actual Mary Rose model looks different than when she was sunk. So the forecastle is different. So I think if you know anything about the Mary Rose, you know that she'd been in service for 20 years and had gone through a number of refits, including a refit not long before she'd sunk. And you know, they keep adding decks and weight and stuff, which obviously affects the sailing characteristics, and you know, to a certain degree leads to one of the reasons behind why she ends up sinking, because the gun ports go into the water and she takes on water. So you know, there's that. So the Mary Rose is not as sunk. I don't know whether it reflects her as she was when she was first built, but certainly she's there's a lot less Mary Rose than there is when she's sunk. But it's a stunning model, and I've had it for years. It's probably my oldest wooden ship in the stash now, in terms of yeah, must be. So that's one option, but that's got very specific rigging, and I probably wouldn't do anything different with the rigging than what's supplied in the kit. It would, though, on the channel show some different working methods, because it's got cast metal guns and bits and pieces like that. So there's some different things to do there. The other difference, the difference is it's a completely different period. So that it's got those plus sides for it. And I absolutely desperately want to build it. It's an older design kit as well, so it'll have some differences that way. So I think it'd be something totally different for the channel. And if you've if I've got the surprise build going on, it would be completely different to that. So that's one option. The other option I've got is the gunship Grinaldo, which I actually bought off eBay, and someone had started it and they damaged it and fluffed it up. Well, what they'd done is they damaged the the gun port patterns, the end tips at the stern are broken over, but it's not the end of the world. And what they've done is they've put the gun port patterns on, and then they've started to put the second planking on, but they haven't done the first planking down below. So I think they've decided they're building it wrong and wanted to stop. But the rest of the kit's there. It's definitely salvageable. And the Graneldo is something that we could add, you know, we could mess around with the rigging on. And it'd be an interesting project to take somebody else's stopped project and see if we can source it and bring it back to life. And again, it's because it's a gunboat, it's got great big mortars on it. It's something quite different. So it would look different to anything else that's happening on the channel during that build. So that's another option. But then we've got HMS Speedy, which is actually my first Vanguard kit purchase, and that's Cochrane's ship that I've wanted to build for some time. So that wouldn't be massively different. And there's plenty of rigging in there to have a play with, but it would look different because it's often modelled wrong. It should be all over black. When Cochrane took over Speedy, we know from records that she was all over black. There's not much reference to what she looked like under Cochrane, but we do know that Cochrane didn't have two halfpennies to rub together. He had very little money, and decoration came out of the captain's pocket. So, you know, any splashes of colour he was going to put on, he'd have to pay for. Now, there is some reference to yellow on the bow, so I think that's on the on the decoration right at the front of the ship, and the rest of it, the whole hull and probably most or almost all of the stern is black. So, and a lot of people do ochre over the stripe over the gun ports, and I strongly believe that's wrong, and I have seen another channel say exactly the same, which sort of reinforced my belief. Now, I don't spend a lot of time researching ships. You spend a lifetime doing that. So I couldn't definitely say that I'm right, but when somebody else is saying that I'm right quite independently, you know, I watched that video and went, yay! So, yeah, I would model it completely black. So she would look a bit different. She wouldn't be the most exciting looking ship, but I think people would enjoy the journey. So we've got Speedy. It's probably speaking to me less than the other two, just in terms of doing something quite different on the channel. And then we've got Harpy, which, you know, we reviewed just over a year ago now when that came out. Certainly we could go to town on the rigging with that. It's got plenty of rigging as it is, so it's just a matter of replacing some of the ropes and having a play. So that would be a really good platform for that. And we've got some of the additional extras in there, which would be nice to play with. And we could definitely do some bits and pieces that were a little different to how I was doing Surprise, because I have a plan in my head for Surprise, but it wouldn't be massively different, if that makes sense. And the other option is, of course, the Duchess that we reviewed not so long ago, a royal yacht. We could do some rope replacement on the rigging, which might be, you know, you don't have to go too far down that road, but make some changes and see what that does to the overall look. There's loads and loads of bling on there. She certainly is going to look very different to a standard run-of-the-mill Royal Navy vessel of the period. She's got an older looking design than she is, so and there's a little bit of scratch building opportunity with her as well. So I'm not making the decision yet, but I'm sort of thinking I'm between Duchess and Granaldo if I want to focus on the rigging, or if I did the Duchess, that's an experienced model of ship and is a natural progression from the Adder. So we will see. I mean, something else might have come along before then. I might go, do you know what, I want to do the Titanic from a Matty. It's not impossible. We will see. But for those of you that have been asking, that's where my thought is, that's where my head is at the moment. So let's just quickly talk about what is coming up in the week ahead on the channel. On Monday we've got a tool review. Is it a tool or is it a product? I'll let you decide, but I've decided it's a tool, I think. Wednesday you've got a tank in First Impressions, and then on Friday it should be the Wessex, but I've not got enough material for it at this moment in time. So I don't know what I'm gonna do with Friday yet. As it's Wednesday now, I'm not gonna have more material or have time to edit it. So we could possibly do Lady Eleanor 9, possibly. So we might have 2 weeks back to back of the Lady Eleanor and then put a Wessex in. Lady Eleanor Part 9 is already loaded up, so I can just switch that on. So that's very much the plan, I think, if I haven't got Wessex done. So it depends how much I get done over the weekend and whether I get time to upload it. I will try and do Wessex because I'd like to try and alternate if I can, but we will see. So that's the plan going forward. Now then, I said we would come back to the indefatigable, and it brings me to what to talk about this week. Many years ago, many years ago, when I was a child, there was a radio show that my mum used to listen to called Desert Island Discs. And the basic principle of the show, if you've never heard of it, although I feel it was fairly famous at the time, but maybe if you're one of my American, Australian or other European countries, you may not have come across the show. The basic principle was they interviewed celebrities, so they get a celebrity in and they get them to talk about, if they were stranded on a desert island, what are the 5 songs they would want with them to listen to? And then those celebrities would talk about those 5 songs. And I was, being fair with you, I was thinking about, ideas of things to talk about in future table talks. And I was thinking about Desert Island Discs. And I even thought about, do we talk about what do you listen to when you're modelling and that sort of stuff, and maybe we will do. But that then led me to Desert Island Discs, and then that led me to Desert Island Kits. So we've all got kits, but is there a kit that, if you were stranded on a desert island, that would be the kit you'd want with you? And why would that be? So that's this week's little topic. So I thought about it from my point of view. So 5 kits that you'd take with you on a desert island and why. So these, ladies and gentlemen, are my 5 desert island kits. So the first thing that I have to say is that all of these kits I actually have in my stash. So if I was only ever going to build 5 kits between now and the end of my modelling career, these would be the 5 kits that I would pick. These are my desert island kits. So we'll do them in reverse order and I'll give you a brief explanation as to why. So in number 5 is the Jungle Outpost from Airfix. Now I know 1 or 2 of you might be raising an eyebrow, but bear with me. This is a kit that I built when I was very young, under 10. So it was a Christmas present one year. Inevitably my dad would have purchased that for me. And I built it, and I built it without painting it. So I never painted it. And it went together. I remember it. I had it on the original vac form base, and I built it, and it looked splendid. There was so much going on. You had these donkeys, you had a guy with a bike, you had these Japanese soldiers, and then you had this building. And it was so very, very different to a street in an English village in the 1970s that I found it really absorbing, even though I hadn't painted it and had done nothing with it. Now, I recently managed to rebuy the original kits with the vac form bases. I've actually got 2 bases, and I bought all sorts of bits and pieces to build it and do a good job and paint it. And I've wanted to revisit it since I was a teenager. You know, I wanted to build it again and do a nice job of it and weather it and have some fun. I've even bought a little Airfix 1/76 scale tank to go with it, to go on it, and just really up the what we can get out of that little diorama. So I'm really looking forward to doing that at some point. And it's been something I've wanted to do for like 40 plus years. So that absolutely has to be on my desert island discs. Number 4 is actually the Mary Rose. We've already talked about her today. That's because I just absolutely am enthralled with the story. I quite like that period of history. Henry VIII I find fascinating. You know, not just the bit with all the different wives, you know, but the social history of Britain at that time is really interesting. The Tudors, the Battle of the War of the Roses, and all that sort of stuff I find quite interesting. And one of the things that Henry VIII did, and a lot of people don't appreciate, is he really built the first proper navy this country ever had. And you know, the Mary Rose is very famous just because she sunk and then was brought back up again. But in actual fact, she wasn't even the most important ship in Henry's fleet. That was Peter Pomegranate. Yeah, that's a ship's name, believe it or not. Pomegranates were a very special royal fruit because they were hard to get hold of. So yeah. And if you think about the naming convention, you've got a name, and then you've got a flower, or in this case a fruit, Peter Pomegranate, and then you've got the Mary Rose, and supposedly named after someone, I forget now. I should know that. But yeah, and I also find the ships very colourful, and you know, it's quite an interesting period of ship design. So it speaks to me on many levels. The wooden model, I've seen it completed actually at the Mary Rose Museum, and it's really nice. It's very eye-catching. So, and I've wanted to build that for years. So yeah, the Mary Rose is my number 4. Number 3 is the King George. In this instance, it's the 1/350 scale Tamiya King George V. And I have built it before. Again, I built it as a teenager, straight out of the box. I probably did an okay job of it, as I recall. I remember I did a gloss red hull. But yeah, I want to revisit that because I have an ancestor that was serving on it at the time of the sinking of the Bismarck. If you've been following the channel for any length of time, you know that I've got quite a strong family connection with the sinking of the Hood and the Bismarck. 2 of my family members were there, my grandfather and his brother. So my grandfather's on a destroyer in support of the Hood, and then the continuing action with the Prince of Wales, and his younger brother or the youngest of 3 brothers that were in the Navy, is on King George V as the meteorological rating, and there's a very interesting story that I have had published and gone into printing, and it is a book. So that's my interest. So if you're going to build the Prince of Wales or the King George V, essentially almost identical ships because they're sisters, then you're going to bring the King George. That, you know, I have a stronger connection to that than the fact that my grandfather was on a ship near it. So that's why King George V is on there. And you know, it's a nice kit, and I've got all the Pontos upgrades, so that would keep me quite busy on a desert island. Number 2 is the Trumpeter 1/200 scale hood. For all the reasons we just talked about, the family connection to the sinking and what have you, but actually I think genuinely she's one of the prettiest, most elegant steel warships ever built. She really, really is pretty, and there's a lot of ships that look, you can see elements of her on the Royal Oak, but the Royal Oak looks a bit cluttered, where the hood's got these long lines and everything's just right. It's just perfectly placed. It looks aesthetically just right. So, you know, not the best ship ever built, but for a long time was the symbol of power for the Royal Navy. A very, very famous ship, but just from the point of view of the aesthetics of it. And when we do come to build it on the channel, and all of these will get built on the channel, then it will be a labour of love. I've got 2 full photo etch sets for her. So it will be a lot of fun and a big build. You think the Scharnhorst has taken a while? Wait till you see me working through the hood. So that's my number 2, and number 1 is my Indefatigable kit. Now I've had that for a little while now, and I bought it because I just wanted to make sure I had it. So why is Indefatigable number 1? You could certainly argue a less famous ship than the other 3 ships that we've just talked about. The reason is that at this moment in time, that's my ultimate wooden ship kit build. Now I could go and get the Caldegraph Victory in 1/72 scale, which I used to consider the mother of all wooden ships, and now don't. I think it probably is still Indefatigable for me, and that's why she's at number 1. That's my ultimate wooden build. And as we were saying earlier, when I come to build her, I want to go to town, so we will be doing some detailing. We'll be adding some extra bits, and I'd like to try and get the rigging to look as close to the actual rigging as possible, which isn't possible on a commercial kit. You know, you can't buy thread that's been woven into those various different rope thicknesses and shapes and stuff like that. So I'd like to be able to do that, but I've got to build 1 or 2 other kits first and practice those rope making to get myself to that point. So Indefatigable, still down the road, but it's going to be a fun journey getting to her. So yeah, I really am excited to build Indefatigable at some point, and I've got everything you can imagine as an upgrade for her. What I don't think I'm going to do is crew her, although I absolutely am going to crew the Surprise. So I've got figures so that I can put crew on her, but we'll talk more about the plan whenever it is we get round to building her. So those are my 5 desert island kits. What are yours? Now these are in my stash. What I'm talking about is kits that exist. So they may be in your stash, they may not be, they may be on your wish list. But what are you, if you had to go and sit on a desert island and you knew that you weren't going to get rescued for a few years and you just needed those models to keep you busy, what would be those 5 models? Let me know down below. And if you're a model designer and you're watching this, I wouldn't mind if you flip that into 5 models you'd like to design or you'd like someone else to make so that you could build, you know, whatever. So yeah, let me know, what are your 5 desert island kits? That's something to keep you thinking for the next week or so, until the next table talk, and until I next see you in one of my videos next week. You enjoy your modelling. Bye for now.